Hey, Darren, have you been watching us on the Electric Now app?
I have. I haven't recently because I watch you pretty much every week when we're doing these things. But
yeah, but it's you know what I love about the Electric Now app?
It's better on video.
Easy to use.
It's
better
really
on video.
Easy. Download the app and you watch us. That's all there is to it.
It's so simple.
And a lot of other cool stuff too.
You go to the App Store. It says Electric Now. You download it, and then in the United States,
press the button, and there it is.
There it is. And you can choose, you can bookmark it. There's plenty of other movies and TV show to enjoy and episodes of all your favorite Electric Surge podcasts. So why wait? Download the Electric Now app and start enjoying us anytime.
Hello, this is not Gene Roddenberry, but if I was around, I would definitely be listening to Inglorious Trexperts, the new podcast from the people who brought you the 430 movie. Check it out, 430movie.com.
Hey, this is Mark A. Altman, and if you're a fan of the only gentleman secret agent with a license to kill and thrill, you should pick up my new James Bond oral history, Nobody Does It Better, available now in hardcover, audio, and digital, wherever books are sold.
Do you expect me to read?
No, I expect you to buy it. Hey, this is Mark A. Altman, and this week, truth is stranger than fiction on Documentary Week. Welcome to an all-new 430 movie, and they're all back all the days of the week. Mr. Monday, Steve Melching.
Hi there, how you doing? Can we do that one again? I don't think I look good in that shot.
Tuesday.
This is not Cinema Verite, is it?
It's Darren Doctorman.
We don't stage our movie here. You just do whatever you were going to do, okay?
Wednesday, like you're fighting, Ashley Miller.
But what if can I start over?
Well, there you got it. There you got your 430 movie Mouseketeers.
Good night, everybody.
And let me tell you, I know, we said this before, going into this, I was kind of like, okay, Documentary Week, that's going to be fun. That's going to be good. But I didn't expect it to be so difficult. I mean, I've said this before, but this may be the most difficult week I've had yet. It was really, really, really difficult. I'm still not sure what I'm going with yet.
I know. I had 4. I narrowed it down to like 4, and I kept changing my mind, up until just now. Like, I'm still not 100% sure, and I got to reveal my choice in a couple of minutes.
Speaking of which, I'm writing down what I think Steve's pick will be on this card here. So,
well, I know one of those picks you never would have guessed, because I doubt any of you have actually even heard of this movie, much less seen it.
Okay, well,
but I didn't pick it. But I will talk about it later, because it's a crazy, strange movie.
I wrote it down on the card, and I will reveal the card when we get to it. But yeah, why are documentaries so captivating?
Well, like you said, truth is stranger than fiction, and I think we're at an age now where we've seen so many damn movies that there's not a whole lot that can surprise us anymore in like a fiction movie. Whereas documentaries, I mean, there's the craziest stories that come out, and the idea that they're true, or at least somewhat true, is really fascinating.
So, Ashley, the Shakespeare adage, there are only 7 plots, where we know all the tropes of fiction, so documentaries inherently can be more surprising and interesting. Do you agree with that?
No, because when documentaries are constructed, they're constructed around a story. Somebody picks a way in. They pick a point of view. They have a story to tell about the story. And I think that the documentaries, if documentaries didn't have a plot, they would be shapeless. There wasn't a structure to them. They would be shapeless. And structure is all plot really is.
Like so Captain Kirk. According to the Klingons in Trouble with Tribbles.
Right.
The Nevian slime devil. That's my opinion too. Before we came on the air today, we were talking about the late lamented restaurant chain, the Ground Round. That was such a great
Oh my God, I remember
restaurant
that place.
growing up. Remember they had the peanut shells on the floor?
Yeah.
And man, they had some really great burgers and
Made from ground round, as I remember.
it was I missed that place. I think I went there for my my first drink as a 21-year-old, my first legal drink. I had at the Ground Round.
Wow.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
Surrounded by peanut shells.
But
salty.
I seem to remember their commercials were fun, and they made it look like it was a lot of fun. Maybe more fun than it actually was, but that's the purpose of commercials, to make
to
you
me, it was kind of
wanna
like
go.
Like a TGI Fridays, but like fun, like not like so Cheney. It was like more.
like Dick Cheney.
It had, yeah, like Dick Cheney. It had more character to it. I felt. You know?
Certainly had more peanut shells.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Salty.
Well, we got a lot to talk about this week with the documentaries.
Maybe we do. Maybe it was hard for all of us.
Maybe it was the single hardest week of all time.
Maybe we all couldn't think of a lot of them.
Maybe I wanted to do Monkey Week too.
Maybe you will anyway.
Maybe I will anyway. You know what? There's got to be a monkey documentary out. You know what? There probably is a monkey documentary out there. Yeah.
And I got 2 columns of movies just from my own collection that I had a hard time whittling it down.
Jesus Christ,
right, Steve? I know it was the
I had a
same.
hard time building it up.
I'm like, okay, well, do I go with politics or history or film or concerts? I mean, they all could be separate weeks. It's like how, bios. I mean, it's like, oh my God, this is brutal.
For the film history of political concerts?
Yeah,
Could be.
So I'm not quite sure.
It's such a broad category. It's like saying it's drama week on the 430. Well, does that include, historical epics? Does that include, intimate?
It's movie week.
It's movie week on the 430.
Look, I think the problem, of course, if we parse this anymore, it could be a problem. I don't know how many weeks of documentaries. I mean, the shows that people seem to really respond to are the genre weeks. And although we've had some more esoteric weeks that did very well, but I'm very curious to see how documentary weeks did. But if we did a month of documentaries, we might be in trouble.
Documentaries, by their nature, at least growing up, you think of a documentary film, it's like having to eat your vegetables. It's educational film. It's maybe a dry subject matter, or a really depressing subject matter about death, or, the horrors of war, or, something terrible like that. But I think in the last 15 or 20 years, we've had this incredible creative sort of explosion of documentary films. There are so many being made and distributed now. And I think that's because of a couple of reasons. First and foremost, I think, is that the sort of democratization of filmmaking of the digital age, where everyone has a high def camera in their pocket, and you can just film stuff, and you're not worried about having your 16 millimeter camera and all your rolls of film and changing magazines. And do you have enough film? Do you have your sound guy there with your sound tape running? And you're worried about lighting and stuff. It's so much easier to capture film or capture images.
But on the other hand, it seems to me that lowers the bar, because it makes it easier to make a documentary about anything, whether or not it's interesting.
Yeah, but I also feel like, how many times in movies have you seen the documentary filmmaker depicted as somebody who is struggling to make a living, that they did it for their art? It was like Ben Stiller in that the movie When We're Young. And then it was also Woody Allen in Crimes and Misdemeanors. There's always this cliche of the documentary filmmaker being the struggling artist.
Yeah.
But what you see with the emergence of the streamers in the last couple of years, they're paying huge money at Sundance and Toronto for these documentaries, which have become hugely popular. So you have things like Icarus, which won the Oscar a couple of years ago, which Netflix spent a ton of money for. And these things that, you would go to like some rundown rat-infested theater in New York or Boston and LA, now, are everywhere, because Hulu's showing it, Netflix is showing it. So they've become much more accessible, I think. And that's why, some of these have just become such giant phenomena. Where it used to be, I think you would have these films where maybe once every couple of years, like Michael Moore would have a big documentary, or Morgan Spurlock, but it wasn't, now there's just so much more, and they're entering the popular consciousness a lot more. But we'll see how much they've entered our consciousness I got my yellow sticky here with my guess for what I think Steve Melching's going to pick, but we'll see if I'm right, as Steve picks our documentary pick for Monday.
Well, I bet your pick is probably at least one of my top four. So my pick for Monday is a movie that it's one that I find myself revisiting regularly. Like some documentaries, you watch them once, and that's enough. It's so powerful, or it's so depressing, or maybe it's just not interesting enough to watch a second time. But this one is one that I've probably watched a couple dozen times since it came out, because it is, at its heart, a really human story that I think anyone can relate to on one level. It's a story of friendship and family and dreams and trying to overcome obstacles to create something that despite all the odds and despite no one believing in you, and what happens if that's something you're creating isn't good, isn't very good or successful. So my movie is from 1999, and it's called American Movie.
Yep.
His whole life is making this one film.
You have 2 hours tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and be an extra in a film.
You get your name on the credits, man, as a producer.
I think my mom's going to have to end up going out in the woods.
I have my shopping to do.
Okay, you got to spread apart that way. All of the extras have just fell through, except for Mike Schenk right there.
We used to do a lot of partying together, but I don't party anymore.
Hey, Mike, make sure everyone has brown gloves.
Does everyone have brown gloves?
No, dude.
And this is the story of Mark Borchardt, a struggling filmmaker from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who is from a working class family. He has his struggles with alcoholism and trying to realize his childhood dream of being a filmmaker. And he's obsessed with horror films and art films, and he's obsessed with making these kind of alternating between his horror film Coven, ostensibly about a satanic coven in the northwestern woods, and his magnum opus, his great American drama Northwestern, a gritty, Rust Belt character drama. And he needs the money to make this feature film Northwestern. He doesn't have the funds. So he decides that if he finishes making his short film Coven, he can sell copies of it in order to raise, in the horror market, in order to raise the money to make Northwestern. So he recruits anyone he can find, and he's got his best friend, Mike Schenk, who is a guitarist who has obviously suffered some kind of brain damage from his drug use. But he's this really sort of gentle, charming, simple, but big-hearted guy who really wants to help his best friend realize his dream. And that relationship I've always found very touching. And he recruits anyone he can find that can operate the camera, he recruits into his film. At one point, he has his mother. It's just him and his mom, and he's trying to get his last shots. And his mom, who doesn't know anything about filmmaking, is running the camera and trying to explain what she's seeing through the viewfinder. Or he gets his kids to help him run the camera. And he pulls together his crew from friends and locals who have a mild interest in making films, but really have very little idea of what they're doing. And against all odds, because of Borchardt's incredible passion, his infectious passion, his drive, his force of personality, his perseverance, and a little bit of financial help from his Uncle Bill, who, by contrast, is this much older man who has given up on all his dreams. And it's really kind of sad and poignant that this guy, you know, he lives in a trailer and yet he's supposedly got $300,000 in the bank, but he doesn't really have anything to live for. He just kind of exists, whereas Mark is driven to try to realize his dream. And he does finish Coven by the end of it. And I'm proud to say that I bought a copy of Coven that I still have autographed on VHS after the film was made. So that's my pick, Coven. Coven, American movie. The making of Northwestern.
I'm heartbroken because, you know, I should have seen it coming because you really have always loved that movie. I guess I had
we saw it together. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do remember. I remember who we saw it with.
And you did not like it, as I recall.
I did not like it. I still don't like it, and that's why I think I had a block up. But yeah, I didn't like it. So my pick is wrong. Let me tell you what my two picks for you were.
Save it.
Don't. Yeah.
Save it.
Yeah.
Save it till later because it may be one of our picks.
You're not picking these movies. You're not picking these
How
movies.
do you know?
Oh, I
You don't know.
You don't even know what Steve picked.
I could have.
I would have.
But by the way,
save it for Friday.
Okay, that's fine. But I have to say, I got an email today at 430movie.com from one of our listeners, Landrew. And this is so funny. This is really funny because you know how I say, oh, I know what Steve's going to pick. He has us pegged. He wrote this great letter. He says, now that I think about it, it would be really surprising if you guys did a 430 movie week on perfect movies where direction, music, story, it's just a perfect movie. He says, but I think I can predict what your picks are. And he said, Steve Melching would go with Raiders of the Lost Ark. Darren would go with Adventures of Robin Hood or maybe The Wizard of Oz. Ashley, I got no fucking idea. and he goes, and you're going with either Casablanca or North by Northwest. And Friday you pick Star Wars. I said, now that guy knows us.
You know what? My pick would have either been Raiders of the Lost Ark or Back to the Future.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I guess we can't do that week now because we've revealed.
No, I think we can do it. I think we can do it. But
I think we can do it if we pick completely different movies.
Yeah. But Darren, does he have you nailed?
No, I don't think those two movies are perfect movies at all.
Yeah. So screw you, Landrew.
Now
I love them, but they are imperfect.
Wow. Because they have not touched the creator.
Well, you know, I guess the Red Hour will have to wait. So
well, he definitely got me.
Right.
I just thought that was a great email
awesome.
Thing. That he really that's somebody who really gets the show. And
that's frightening.
Yeah, actually. Yeah. I thought it was great.
But Landrew knows all.
Yeah. Ashley will pick Roadhouse and
Peace and Tranquility.
In the body.
And he's probably right. I probably would have picked Casablanca. Okay. So
no, you would have picked North by Northwest because I would have picked Casablanca before you.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll save it. We'll save it for things. Okay. So, Steve, great pick. Darren, you have anything you want to say? Because I know you're a fan of that movie, too.
I'm not really a fan of that movie. I enjoy the subject matter, and I enjoy the wackiness of it. But no, it's just too uncomfortable to watch for me. Because I knew too many of those people.
Yeah, and apparently, just like the person that came with us to that movie, who we found out that Steve had dated, I had dated, Joel LaFleur had dated.
Wow, that's right. Now that's a documentary I want to watch. I mean, obviously, you know.
Yeah, that was
wildly edited.
Yeah,
that was weird.
That was weird.
Yeah.
Okay. When I learned that,
no, let's not. No. As we moving on. So, a not entirely surprising pick from Steve Melching, but an interesting one, I will say. Which brings us to Tuesday and Darren Docterman, and I'm very curious to see what Darren has to say.
I've already gone through two choices since we've started recording. And I'm on the third now. So I'm going with the third because it's something that I completely forgot about. But when Steve was talking about this, I started thinking, oh, I know what I'm going to pick. And here it is. In the late 60s, there was a comic artist who was basically the leader of the underground, the anti-establishment artist. He was located in San Francisco, and he put out a lot of underground comics, and his name was known as Crum, Robert Crum.
I remember when I was drawing this, there was this young girl there, and she was 11. She said, oh, isn't that cute? And to me, it was all like a horror show, this whole thing. And she just thought it was really cute and happy looking. To me, it was just like a drawing of the horror of America.
And in 1995, there came out a disturbing, entertaining, frightening couple of weeks spent with Robert Crum just hanging out and following him on his journey and visiting with his very disturbed family members, finding out his deepest fears and finding out how really screwed up this poor guy is. And it's amazing. The movie is called Crum, and it is really an in-depth look into the psyche of this man, who, for all intents and purposes, is insane. He is a functional, insane person. And he's, under medication and all sorts of things, but he's always been screwed up. But when you see his family, he's the least screwed up person from his family. We meet his older brother, who would torture him when they were young. His older brother was arguably a better artist than him, and sort of introduced Robert to the world of drawing and drawing. They would draw comic books together, but we see that through these comic books that they show us, his brother's progression deeper into psychosis, and it's really frightening. And you can see his style of drawing change into something very surreal and very disturbing, that it's coming from the pit of his darkest psyche. But it's interesting because you can see how Robert Crum emerged from all this and survived and kind of got a handle on his problems and was able to channel that into his creativity and to basically exorcise his demons through his art. And it's a really fascinating documentary. And, it follows him on a time where he is planning on a big move to France. He's leaving the United States, and he's trying to get away from all this bullshit, basically. It's fascinating and disturbing and wonderful to find out about this very talented but haunted man.
And Terry Zwigoff directed that, didn't he?
That's correct.
Yeah. Who's also a quirky individual.
Well, you can tell.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I remember I was working, in the Film Thread office then. I was doing Sci-Fi Universe and that was right around when Crum was happening. Mm-hmm. And they were very close with Terry. And it's a fascinating documentary. I'm not surprised it's your pick. I wouldn't have guessed it, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And it's a great pick and a really terrific documentary. That's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I remember seeing that. I don't think I've seen it since, but I saw it in the theaters when it was out, and I really liked it. I thought it was a fascinating character study of this really important underground artist of the time.
Mm. So that brings us to Wednesday, and dare I say it, Ashley Edward Miller. So it's up to you now.
What's in the box,
guys? What's in the box?
I struggled with this guys. And it's funny because my struggle took on multiple forms. The first struggle was
a giant and moving Torg.
Yes.
Star Wars. It took place in a galaxy far,
far,
far
away. It was real,
right?
It was like the extra features on Ace Ventura.
It's train arriving at a station, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You know what? That would have been awesome if it were.
First documentary.
I wish I had thought of that because that would be out of the box. No, but at first I was like, I don't know, man. I don't watch documentaries. Like, I'm not that guy. And then when I thought about it, I realized, no, I do watch documentaries. And then I had this whole list of them that I wanted to talk about. And then I thought, well, they're all a little squirrely. And I struggle with, but though there was one that I thought that Darren might pick because I remember him bringing it up.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. King of Kong, right? You thought he was going to bring?
No,
that
I didn't
up.
think it was King of Kong.
Okay.
And I can tell you what I thought it was, but I don't want to step on anything you're going to say.
You won't, trust me.
Okay, I thought Darren was going to bring up a movie called Tim's Vermeer.
Oh yeah. That's a great one.
I think I already mentioned it on this show.
Yeah, I was a little concerned that maybe you had. So I went and I looked it up. I didn't see evidence that you had, but I feel like it was brought up. It's a terrific film. It's not going to be my pick. So there are 3 documentaries that kind of spoke to me on a very personal level for different reasons. And I don't know, man. Like it's like part of me just wants to say, I want to pass until March. I want to be Thursday this week so I can still keep thinking about this. But I guess what's the point of this podcast? The point of this podcast is
beats the heck out of me.
You know, it's risk is our business, right? That's what this podcast is about. We're supposed to tell people about
why we record her.
That's right. It's like we want people to go out and watch these movies because we think they matter, because they matter to us. So if I'm going to use that as
we offer the world
yes, exactly. If that's going to be the razor for me on this, then all right. I've got to go with one of the most depressing documentaries I have ever seen, honestly. And it's seriously, this is not me going like, hey, I'm setting us up for a joke. Like it's no kidding. It is harrowing to watch. It's a 2013 documentary set in West Virginia. It's about the oxycodone addiction epidemic, really. It's called Oxyana.
A lot of the stuff that happens here is just not normal.
You know, half of my graduating class is dead, and I'm 23 years old.
I love it because of the way it makes me feel and how it takes everything away, but I hate it because of what it's doing to me and what it's doing to the people around me.
I've done horrible things for dope.
They call it Oxyana. I mean, it's the name of it.
Oceana used to be such a wonderful place to live.
There's this darkness that has come over it. And I think in a way it's even affected the natural beauty of this place.
And it's very hard to watch because what you're really seeing is a place in the world, a little town where time has stopped moving in just so many ways. And there is nothing for the people who live there. They don't really have jobs. They do, but they don't. Like the economy is nothing. It's in the shitter. It's 2013, man. It's they don't have anything in front of them. That's the message right now. Look, you may sit back and say, okay, once you get outside of the documentary context and you're dealing with people have things in front of them. But the story that's being told in the documentary is about people who do not see future, because every day of the past looks exactly the same to them, and they deaden the pain with a drug that's easy to get, because all you have to do is get a dentist to write a prescription. That's all you have to do. And it tells the story of how oxycodone just destroyed
Patrick McNee,
right?
Is it Oxycontin?
It's Oxycontin is the whatchamacallit? It's the hormone in your head that makes you fall in love. But thank you for playing.
But oxycodone is the drug.
Yes,
is that right?
Yes, oxycodone is the drug.
You can tell from my copious experience with the drugs. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
Of course, it's like, as one of my friends once said about it, it's like there are two devils, cocaine and oxy, and oxy hates you.
Right.
And it's, you just watch it. There's one of the main characters.
Have a couple root canals, you'll find out.
Yeah, exactly. Like one of the main subjects, I mean, not characters, he's a character, but subjects of this documentary, it kind of lays out how the drug led to basically the destruction of his entire family generationally, like the violence that it led to, the violence inside the family. And it's just, I can't recommend this to you as a film that's going to make you feel like, wow, it's awesome to be people. It's not going to leave you that way. But what it will do is open up your eyes to a whole side of America that you have no idea exists, and that, you know, these are real people and they have real lives, and, you know, they hurt. And, you know, it speaks to me because, you know, there's a lot in my family history that's very hillbilly elegy, man. And, you know, my family comes from a place that's, thank God, is not racked, you know, by that particular demon. It's not possessed in that way, but I can see the outlines of it. I see a lot of there, but for the grace of God go I in this film. And it's incredibly powerful. Once you stop watching, even though I think you'll want to stop, you just won't. You just won't, because your heart will go out to these people.
Would you say that you become addicted to it?
You become addicted to it. Yes. And then you watch it every day, but then you have to watch it a little bit longer, because the next time you watch it just doesn't feel the same way as the first time. No, it's truly terrific. And I, you know, if you've got the intestinal fortitude to handle it, then I would say seek it out and watch it. Oxyana, 2013. It's excellent.
Well, I'm definitely going to seek this out, because as you may know, I have a high tolerance for really depressing, serious, sobering documentary subject matter. And I don't think I've even heard of this one, but it reminds me a little bit of a PBS Frontline did a 3-part series called Country Boys back in the 90s that followed a group of teenagers in Appalachia and followed their lives, which was really illuminating and really kind of sad and depressing. Like what prospects do these poor guys have just by virtue of being born, into that area. And, they're doing the best they can given the terrible schools and the lousy home lives that they have, and how they struggle to try to get out of there, and most of them fail. It's really hard to get out of situations like that for a variety of reasons.
The feel-good movie of the summer.
Yeah. I haven't heard of it either. And that's what's great about the show, is that you can bring, underseen gems like this to not only the attention of the audience, but to us.
Yeah.
So that's
again, it's
fantastic.
like, I can't say you're going to love it, but I will say that in the you're not going to watch it and
you helped me pick my film, that's for sure.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so Thursday. Well, first of all, like I said, since Ashley has just turned this into a downer of a week, I'm not going to go with Showa. That was okay. I mean, also, that would sort of clear the board. Show us 9 hours. It would I'd do the whole week. So I'm not going to go with show Claude Lanzmann's amazing documentary about the Holocaust, in which he uses no archival footage and just interviews at the time. This was 30 years ago, survivors and surviving guards and Nazis and survivors of the Holocaust. It's a really remarkable, but like Ashley said, not the entertaining movie of the week. So we're not going to go with that. Steve, you put me in a difficult position, because I was so sure you were going to go with something that I didn't even plan on. And now I feel like this is, now I feel terrible, because this movie, more than anything this week, deserves it, which of course are the Michael Apted Up movies, which I was sure you were going to go with, particularly since Michael Apted passed away this week. Those are remarkable documentaries that he updated on a consistent basis throughout his life, and it's really sad. Yeah,
it's a monumental achievement, and yes, that was one of the ones I was struggling. That was on my short list, because those are truly iconic movies, and I'm sad to say I haven't seen. I think the last two, 63 Up came out last year or the year before.
Yeah, how often did he update them? They were
7 years.
7 years.
So yeah. I saw 47 Up, I think. 47 Up?
I mean, it's
49 Up, because they're multiples of 7.
It's really a monumental undertaking, those films, and that he managed to do it through his entire life. And people would pass away, and to see the way from kids to teenagers to adults to senior citizens. It's a remarkable series of movies. And again, Michael Apted, who did Gorillas in the Mist and The World Is Not Enough, he passed away recently. And although I think this is what he was most proud of.
Oh yeah, and it's sort of based on that maxim: "Show me the child at age 7, and I'll show you the man." And you could see like how these children related to each other and what they were doing at age 7 on the playground. Can you extrapolate what they're going to be like as adults? And it's fascinating to watch these kids grow up over 63 years. I mean, it's incredible.
So my other guess was going to be for you, which was incorrect. And I'm really disappointed in you, because you went with American Movie instead of the movie you should have gone with, which was
My Best Fiend.
Werner Herzog. Well, that's funny. Yeah, Grizzly Man. I thought you were going to go Grizzly Man.
Those are the other two on my list. My Best Fiend, which is Werner Herzog's documentary about his relationship with Klaus Kinski, which is fantastic. And of course, the great Grizzly Man, which is the story of oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. The bear lover who would travel up to the Alaskan wilderness to spend time with the grizzly bears and document them.
Does not end well.
No, and it's fascinating. Herzog has made so many great documentaries. Werner Herzog's someone that I came to in film school watching things like, Aguirre, The Wrath of God, and Fitzcarraldo. And The Mandalorian. But then suddenly along the line, like he started making these incredible documentaries, like, The White Diamond or Encounters at the End of the World or Cave of Forgotten Dreams. He's made these fantastic documentaries. I just watched his most recent one about meteors. That's on, I think it's on HBO
with Sean
Max.
Connery and Brian Keith.
Yes.
Yeah. See, Steve, your description of your movie, up until the very last moment, was describing Burden of Dreams.
Yes, Burden, not made by Herzog.
Not made by Herzog, but featuring Herzog.
Yeah, about the making of Fitzcarraldo, which is a fantastic. If you ever want to see a movie about the struggles to make a movie, like that one's a great one, Burden of Dreams, and the one about Apocalypse Now.
Hearts of Darkness.
Which was one of my other choices. Yeah.
Both.
You know what I thought you were going to pick? Speaking of movies about movies, Darren, I thought you were going to go with Jodorowsky's Dune.
No, I hate Jodorowsky's Dune because I think that we all dodged a huge bullet for that movie never coming to pass.
Well, I agree. I think it would have been a terrible Dune adaptation, but the documentary I think is fantastic. I love it.
I don't agree. It just shows what a complete nutcase he is.
I don't enjoy that. Shows you what a complete nutcase he is.
Well, that's true. And Jodorowsky's Dune actually inspired our sister podcast, Best Movies Never Made.
Absolutely.
It was produced by Steven Scarlatta.
That's
and
correct.
I went to Steve and I said, it's such a terrific movie. I said, would you want to do this on a weekly basis as a podcast? And him and Josh Miller, said yes, and they've been doing an amazing show. Just finding incredibly all these unproduced films that they've been covering over the last couple of years, and it's been fantastic.
But I'm sorry, we distracted you from Thursday, Mark.
Yes.
Oh yeah, Thursday. It's funny because, like I said, Ashley really helped me out because I know I don't want to go with something depressing now. I'm not going to go, and I think I'm not going to go with one of the great concert docs like Woodstock or Stop Making Sense, The Last Waltz. Although, this is another thing I thought Steve was going to pick, Searching for Sugar Man. That was the other thing I thought you might pick.
That was on my list as well, absolutely.
Yeah. I also love 20 Feet from Stardom, but I'm not going to go with a concert film or a music film. Steve, you recommended on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I watched it, and I loved it. It's not going to be my pick, but I highly recommend it. Class Action Park on HBO Max.
Oh
my God. So entertaining. If you want to see a documentary, it's entertaining until it's not. And I don't mean that the movie gets bad. I mean, it gets really depressing. It's really funny. And it's like, it's not funny until someone gets hurt, and it's like, it's really, at the end, you feel guilty for having laughed so hard at the whole thing.
That's that documentary about, what's it called? Action Park?
Class Action.
Because it's got their movies. Class Action Park. Did you ever go there? Did you ever go to Action Park, Mark?
No, but I remember the commercials.
Yeah.
I remember. I never went there because it was all the way in New Jersey. It was a schlep, and I wasn't. I liked safe parks where I wasn't going to get killed,
like Jungle Habitat,
like Jungle Habitat, and Great Adventure.
Great Adventure, where you're part of the fun.
Yeah, I was not going to Action Park, let me tell you. And even though I wanted to, there was no way my parents were letting me go to Action Park. But I do remember the commercials, and boy, is that an entertaining documentary. But that's not my pick. So, really, really difficult time. And again, I thank you because I was considering Bowling for Columbine, but again, about the gun culture in America. I'm not a fan of Michael Moore as a person. I do like his documentaries, but we saw him at Telluride a couple of times. Not the friendliest guy. The icon is not necessarily the guy, and I think his more recent stuff isn't as interesting. But I want to go with something fun, which is another film we saw at Telluride, which I love, and we couldn't do Documentary Week without mentioning him at least once. Errol Morris, The Fog of War. Remember Robert McNamara was there? Remember that?
Yeah.
That was crazy. Because Telluride doesn't announce what's going to play there until you get there. And it was like, we're going to be showing Errol Morris's new documentary, The Fog of War, and his guest is going to be Robert McNamara. Actually, it was like it was incredible. And the documentary is fantastic, but also a little depressing. And you got to sort of parse what's real and what's him attempting to burnish his legacy. I think I want to go with something that's just wildly entertaining, because, we've had a little too much depression for this week. There's a documentary that I absolutely adore, and I went back to watch it because it's not on digital. It's not on Blu-ray. It's only on DVD. And I couldn't find it, and I know I have it somewhere. It's called Z Channel, A Magnificent Obsession. And it's all about the Z Channel in Los Angeles. Now, this existed before I moved out here. This was sort of like, the promised land. It was before HBO, before it was like they showed all these great movies. It's sort of like Criterion Channel meets HBO meets
like the 4:30 movie if it was a whole network.
Yeah, and it was like, and it was a short-lived thing that burned brightly, that it only existed in California and Los Angeles. And they just made the late FX Feeney, who's featured prominently in it, made this amazing documentary directed by Zan Cassavetes about the Z Channel. And it's just wildly entertaining. And unfortunately, I couldn't find the DVD. And and so I can't speak to it with any kind of. It's been a long time since I watched it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. So okay, so it's come down to two things for me. The first is the brilliant Oscar-winning Man on Wire about Philip Petit, who basically tightrope walks between the two Twin Towers. It was adapted into a film by Robert Zemeckis called The Wire, Man on Wire. The Wire, which is not at all good and doesn't do justice to this incredible documentary. Although I remember in 3D, like the last 20 minutes where he actually does the tightrope walk is actually, fun. But the movie's like way over the top, and it doesn't have like the heart and the sense of accomplishment and just the elegy for the Twin Towers in retrospect that, that Man on Wire has, which is just sensational.
And also at times plays like a heist movie, because like how they get into the towers and all the equipment that they need, and the idea of, shooting an arrow across between the two buildings to string the wire across. It's nuts.
It's so good and so well told. That I'm inclined to go with that, because my other two picks are
my other
movie
picks.
Stuff. Well, you already did you already did a movie documentary, right? Mm. And the two movie documentaries that I love, which would compete with Man on Wire, are of course Mark Hartley's Electric Boogaloo, about the history of Cannon films, which pound for pound might be the most entertaining, funniest, outrageous story, not to be confused with the Go-Go Boys, which was the one that Golan and Globus actually made about themselves or had made, which doesn't tell the real story. Whereas Electric Boogaloo spares no, it's vicious in the best way, and it deals with all these awful movies, everything from the missing in action movies to Life Force to Last American Virgin, Wicked Lady. I mean, just all these awful movies, and the Superman 4. It's such an incredible story, really well told with like a plethora of clips. So I love that. But I'm going to go my pick this week. And I'm breaking what I said. I wasn't going to go with the movie, but I have to. Even though the audiobook is better, I'm going to go with the brilliant Brett Morgan and Nanette Bernstein documentary about Robert Evans, The Kid Stays in the Picture.
It was the beginning of the golden era of the new Hollywood. And me, I was lucky to be part of it.
My name is Robert Evans.
Stardom found him.
Big splash. New York businessman dives into pool and comes out movie star.
Hollywood seduced him.
Where does the next actor, and a bad one at that, come off running a studio?
Success defined him.
Godfather. Paramount didn't want to make the film. I think there were more pregnancies over a love story than any film ever made. Chinatown, first draft of the script. Nobody understood it.
Which I adore, and it's beautifully told. They pioneered the 3D that Ken Burns kind of photo montage where the photos almost seem to come to life. It's stunningly directed. Robert Evans narrates his own story. Look, the audiobook is better just because it's probably about 8 hours longer. Right. So it gets into a lot more detail. But I love the documentary. It's coming out from Kino Lorber on Blu-ray, I think, next month. But the DVD and digital is out now. And I just think it's fantastic. I'm fascinated by the late Robert Evans. I always have been. His story is both tragic and also inspirational. And I just think it's a great documentary. And he was one in a million. There was no one like Robert Evans, and the way he tells his story, I mean, it's full of hyperbole, but it also it all happened. It's hard to believe,
There's three sides to every story: your side, my side, and the truth.
And no one is lying.
No one is lying.
Which is actually, I use that in the Star Trek book because in 50-Year Mission, because a lot of times it's like Rashomon. People tell different stories and everyone thinks they're right. Nobody's intentionally distorting the truth. It's their own subjective perspective. So my choice for Thursday, after much Sturm und Drang, very, very, very difficult, is going to be The Kid Stays in the Picture, about the life of Robert Evans, the adaptation of his brilliant book, but it really became a phenomenon because of the audiobook where he read his own audiobook, and nobody talks like him. It's like the way he says,
unless you're Bob Odenkirk. Have you seen Bob Odenkirk's recording session with God?
Oh no.
He does a recording session of God, basically doing his own autobiography, and it sounds exactly like Robert Evans. It's hilarious.
You bet your ass I did.
I worked 6 days and I rested the 7th. You bet I did. You.
That's hysterical. So that brings us to Friday, and we're not done yet. There's so many great films that we haven't even.
I promise you, we're not finished yet. I want to throw a couple out that I saw in the theater when I was much younger. That's Entertainment movies.
Yeah. They're not really documentaries as compilation movies.
Well, yeah, but they are documentaries because they have introductions by all the, remaining living MGM stars on the back lot before it was all torn down.
Yeah, and that's true.
It gives you a really sort of, bittersweet look at the end of an era. And it documents the closing down of Hollywood as we knew it from that time. And it's really interesting to see all the vast array of movies that they put out in those days, and the way that the studio system kind of worked. And it's fascinating. And I always enjoyed, I watched it when I was, it came out when I was 9 or 10, something like that. It was just amazing to watch and have a perspective on, what the movie business was like.
When you said something you watched as kids, I thought you were going to say In Search of Historic Noah's Ark. Or In Search of...
Which case,
no.
Yeah, I'm in.
It's In Search of Historic Jesus and In Search of Noah's Ark from Sun Classic Pictures.
Yeah. So I thought that's where you were going.
That's funny.
I wonder if you can even get those, if they're even on...
The Sun Classic Pictures movies?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't seen them in
if
forever.
they are, when this pandemic is over, we should get together and we should all watch Sun Classic Pictures Night and just watch some of those old, cruddy, pre-In Search of documentaries. That would be so fun.
That would be very funny.
And then watch the Bigfoot episode of $6 Million Man.
Right.
Hell yeah.
I have one more suggestion for Friday. It's a very recent one. It can be found on HBO Max right now. It's the documentary on the Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart?
It's terrific.
Which is absolutely amazing and gives you a really widespread look at the Bee Gees through the late 60s when they were hanging around with the Beatles, and all through the 70s as they, basically, put a huge explosion onto the music industry, and were later pilloried by it. So it's really fascinating to watch, and it's a tragic story about these brothers who there's only one left. And it's really touching and really well done, directed by Frank Marshall, of course, who worked on so many Spielberg projects.
Dr. Fantasy.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a terrific movie. And I always kind of liked the Bee Gees. They're always kind of a guilty pleasure for me. Sure. But after watching this documentary, I'm not so guilty about it anymore. Yeah. I like the freaking Bee Gees. They're fun. God damn it.
Yeah. You started a joke, Steve. It was heard all around the world. But you should be dancing. I got to watch it. I'm dying to watch it. And you see, that's what we were talking about. It's like HBO Max. You got the Bee Gees documentary. You got Class Action Park on Hulu. You have 3 Identical Strangers.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And then of course back on Netflix, you got Icarus. So you got and RBG about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Right. So so many of these great things. I couldn't put Super Size Me on the list because I would like to eat McDonald's again at some point in the future.
So here's one I was down to the wire on this pick, and this is the one I don't think any of you have even heard of. It's from 1986. It's called Sherman's March. a meditation on the possibility of romantic love in the South during an era of nuclear weapons proliferation. And it's this fascinating movie about this documentary filmmaker named Ross McElwee, who had just broken up with a longtime girlfriend and wanted to make a movie about documenting the lingering effects of Sherman's march to the sea from the Civil War in the modern South. And so he travels down to retrace the steps of Sherman's army and interviews all these strange people and ends up getting involved in relationships with several women along the way. And it's this really sort of slice of like a year in this guy's life doing that, and it's this really kind of meditative, wistful, odd journey. And it's one of those movies that I stumbled across on Bravo or something on cable in the 90s, and it just had like a hypnotic effect on me. I was just fascinated because it's just got a very languid pace to it. It's not flashy at all, and it's one of, like, every time it came on, it's one of those things I just had to keep watching. Every time I switched channels and came across it until I bought the DVD.
Right.
Speaking of Sherman's March, would you consider Atomic Cafe a documentary or something else? Because of course, Atomic Cafe, uses all this old 50s duck and cover featurettes, and then
public service films made.
Public service and nuclear explosions, and it's like a sort of a look back at that weird 50s era of but it's all vintage footage. I mean, but it's not really telling a story as much as it's like capturing that era. So I don't know if I'd call it a documentary, but I love the Atomic Cafe.
Along those lines, there's another one that came out in 1994, which uses declassified footage of nuclear explosions called Trinity and Beyond by my friend Pete Curran, and it's narrated by William Shatner, and it's really fascinating and really spooky, and such beautiful restorations of this documentary footage that was shot during the testing. It's really frightening and wondrous at the same time.
And it has a score that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? The score for that has been part of my writing playlist for years. It's really lush orchestral.
It's by a friend of mine, William Stromberg, who is an amazing composer.
Yeah.
Not Carl Stromberg, who is an amazing ocean biologist.
That's right.
Or Carl Stricken,
who was Lurch.
Well, my almost number 2 pick was also The War Room, which is Chris Hedges and T.A. Pennebaker's chronicle of the 1992 campaign for president, where they followed Bill Clinton and mostly George Stephanopoulos and James Carville around.
Right.
And James Carville is, as great as any fictional character in any movie. He is just so interesting to follow around, and it's a really terrific fly on the wall documentary. At first is they're defeating the primaries up in New Hampshire, and I remember who he's running against. He was running against Tsongas. To think that anyone was going to vote for Tsongas at the time, and then of course it's about him running for office, for the presidency against George H.W. Bush, who was trying to get a second term, and you could just see they were sort of stuck in first gear when these young Turks were evolving the nature of a political campaign. And it's a really terrific and sort of candid documentary, and wildly entertaining. I think Criterion put it out a couple of years ago, and it's a wonderful documentary. Also, Ezra Edelman.
It's the economy, stupid.
It's the economy, stupid. Yeah, I mean, just turning things into bite-sized attacks, and it's like Carville knew from the beginning that the no new taxes. Read my lips. That was the end of H.W. Bush. It's a really, for anybody who's a political junkie, it's a terrific documentary. Also, Ezra Edelman's O.J. Made in America is fantastic. Came out about the same time as the FX series on the O.J. trial, but it combines both a look at O.J. and just the history of the civil rights struggle and racism in America. And it's a really amazing documentary.
I don't even think the O.J. murders happen until about hour 4 of that documentary, because it gets so deep into the police culture in Los Angeles and the history of L.A. It's fascinating.
And it won the Oscar, which is weird because it premiered on ESPN of all things.
Yeah.
But somehow it won the Oscar for Best Documentary. But I'm glad it did because it's pretty remarkable.
I got a hard time with Friday this week because usually with these themes, it's like we can sort of identify a movie that captures what the week is about. And I mean, this week is like, well, there's this documentary. That's good. I guess somebody could have nominated it. I mean, even if it's great, we're saying that, right? I mean, and it's funny because you mark your Thursday pick. I think probably would have ended up being a perfect Friday pick, just because if nothing else, it's a movie about movies. I mean, in my head, I thought Friday should be something like Hearts of Darkness.
Well, I still think that, if only for Marlon Brando saying, "I swallowed a bug." Right.
Swallowed a bug.
He is one of the most acclaimed and controversial filmmakers of all time. In 1979, his adaptation of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness captured the horror of Vietnam and instantly became a classic.
My film is not a movie. My film is not about Vietnam.
C'est pas au sujet du Vietnam.
It is Vietnam.
C'est le Vietnam.
It's what it was really like. It was crazy.
A lot of these movies about movie making are glorified special features on a Blu-ray. Hearts of Darkness is not.
It's a
Hearts
damn
of
movie.
Darkness is a real movie, and I mean, it captures Martin Sheen's nervous breakdown in excruciating detail.
Yeah.
And you really feel for him and Coppola. I mean, he, that famous quote that Coppola has, Apocalypse Now wasn't a movie about Vietnam. It was Vietnam, and I could easily go with Hearts of Darkness, although obviously Documentary Week would be skewing heavily to movies about film, but maybe that's not a bad thing for the 4:30 movie, because there's Visions of Light, which was Arnold Glassman and Todd McCarthy's film about cinematography. Problem with that is it's a film about cinematography that you can only get in standard def now. So it's like, who the hell wants to watch that? and then I don't know if you guys saw this at the Cinematheque, but there was a long time where they didn't license the clips for Los Angeles Plays Itself. It's like this 6-hour documentary about Los Angeles as seen in movies. It basically tells the story of Los Angeles and architecture and the highway system and everything. Tom Anderson's brilliant documentary, but eventually it was released on home video and briefly, I think, on digital. But then there were problems because they didn't have the rights to the clips that are in it. It's like 6 hours. It's just all the stuff from the Exiles and showing the old Bunker Hill before it was raised, and it's just really phenomenal for anybody who's interested in the history of Los Angeles to use the history of film to tell. It's like the real Chinatown in a sense.
Right.
It's really a great documentary.
There's one more that I think that I mentioned on our first go around on this podcast when we didn't know what it was. I think I mentioned
we do now.
But it's the documentary about a typeface, Helvetica.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think I should mention it again because it's one of those things where you don't think it will be interesting, and it is. I mean, granted, I'm sort of skewed in that direction. But
much like the first episode of this podcast.
Exactly. But it's fascinating, and if you can find it, look it up.
Did you guys see Noah Baumbach's documentary about De Palma? I love that too, but that's more a movie maven thing because it's literally a camera interviewing De Palma and a bunch of clips. And I think De Palma is a more interesting guy than he is a filmmaker. Like, I love his ability to tell stories and his whole career, the way it evolved from being just a Hitchcock knockoff guy, but to something more, and then doing brilliant films like The Untouchables, which he was really wasn't able to ever do again. But he's such an interesting guy. I've always been fascinated by De Palma. I remember in high school I used to read Double De Palma and all those books about him. But he's not a great filmmaker. He's a fascinating guy, and I think that documentary is great. But again, it's another movie documentary.
Yeah.
You know what I bet everybody here loved, which could be good? I don't know if it's the greatest documentary, but I loved it. It's Colin Hanks' All Things Must Pass, about the history of Tower Records.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing about that is, I mean, I know I don't know, Ashley, but the three of us spent a lot of time at Tower Records over the years.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
And before we got to know each other.
Yeah.
This was in like the late 80s and early 90s.
Those of you playing at home, kids, it used to be that you'd have to go to special stores where they had physical objects that conveyed the music that you wanted to hear, or the movies that you wanted to see, or the books that you wanted to read. You had to hold them in your hand. You had to put them into things.
This is like a baby's toy.
I mean, I remember I used to go all the time to the one in Greenwich Village when I lived in New York. And then when I moved out here, I lived in Orange County, unfortunately, for a year. When I first moved out here, the first thing I did was find where Tower Records was. There was one in Irvine, and I used to go there.
At the Fashion Center.
Yeah, right near the Fashion Center, yeah. And then, of course, the famous one on Sunset, which is where we would mostly go, and then there was the great one up by you in Burbank that's no longer there.
Well,
too.
it was the
Ventura Boulevard.
It was
that was Virgin.
Boulevard.
That was Virgin. That was Virgin Megastore.
It was but on Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks.
Right. Yes, there was that,
which was split into music and video.
Well, just like the one on Sunset where they had Tower Video across, which was always the worst. You go to the record one, you know, and then you have to cross the street to go to the Laserdisc one, or the ultimately the DVD one.
It was both a shopping spree and an adventure.
It's a floor wax and a dessert top.
And then there are documentaries that actually changed things. You could think of An Inconvenient Truth, which really helps spark a debate about the environment. And then there's a series of documentaries called Paradise Lost about the West Memphis Three that helped exonerate these three teenagers who were wrongly accused of terrible murders and were on death row. And this documentary basically got these kids a new trial and got them freed, saved their lives. And then there's a movie that's a spiritual cousin to American movie that I've always been fond of, Anvil, the story of Anvil, about a Canadian heavy metal band that's sort of like a real life Spinal Tap. And you're watching this thing and you can't believe, like, is this a put on? Is this a parody? Like, no, it's real. This is a real band that really came close to success and then just didn't quite make it. And it's a really heartwarming story about these friends who have this heavy metal band that are still in the game. They're in their late middle age and they're still recording albums and still keeping that dream alive. It's super entertaining.
Well, there are also so many great documentaries about war. I mean, going back to the classic filmmakers during World War II, when Frank Capra and those guys were doing the newsreels and shooting the footage of America at war. But even more recently, you have something like with Vietnam, with Hearts and Minds. And there's a great documentary about Afghanistan. Oh, God, and what was it? It was like Last Exit, or what was it called? Do you remember?
Last Exit to Brooklyn.
No,
that's a different thing.
There was there's really remarkable a documentary about Afghanistan. I'm trying to remember. Was it Iraq? I got it and I don't. I'm embarrassed, but I do have the James Bond documentary, Everything or Nothing, by Stephen Riley, which I thought was terrific. And then there's one about George Lazenby, which is fun, becoming Bond.
This never happened to the other guy. Would have been a much better title.
They interview Lazenby, and then they do all these reenactments of his life, which are pretty funny.
Voiced by somebody with a really weird accent.
But, look, Woodstock, then, of course, you have Last Waltz, directed by Scorsese, and even maybe more importantly, Stop Making Sense by Jonathan Demme. We haven't done any of these great concert documentaries either.
I think that's a separate week.
Yeah, it's like I feel like we could probably start running down a massive list of every documentary ever made. And we never arrive at Friday. We have to make a pick.
We got to pick. And I would push for Jodorowsky's Dune, except that Darren is not on the train.
I'll go along with it. I'm easy.
Just for the crossover appeal with Best Movies Never Made.
Did we already pick that?
No, I don't think so. For what, Jodorowsky Week?
For movies about
Mexican Filmmaker Week?
Movies about movies.
Movies about movie week.
I think that's where. I think that's.
Oh shit!
Did we pick it for movies about movies?
No, we didn't. I think we discussed it that week, but we did not pick it. I just checked the list.
Okay,
Then,
thank you.
Then it's got to be American Vandal.
Dude, yes.
Who drew the dicks?
It was the turd burglar.
American Vandal is a mockumentary series on was it on Netflix?
Netflix.
On Netflix, yeah.
That's sort of a takeoff on the like Serial podcast, just about these kids,
but 48 hours,
very funny.
So what are we gonna pick?
I would go with Jarvis because I don't think we're going to get any traction on the Michael Moore stuff. Like I would push for Bowling for Columbine or Fahrenheit 9/11, but I have a feeling that we won't get there. So I think that I think we'd all feel good about Jodorowsky's Dune.
I'm fine with Jodorowsky's Dune only because it it features the great Ron Cobb. So
yes,
it does, and Mobius,
Jean Giraud,
but not Moby.
But
a totally different dude.
Moby's not in there.
Oh god, and who's the other artist? Chris Foss.
Chris Foss.
Yeah, Chris Foss is in there too.
Yeah.
And of course Dan O'Bannon.
Yes.
Who is not an artist.
Yeah, he was.
He was?
Yeah, but he was the visual effects supervisor.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking of what's his name? Who was the writer who
the same person.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Holy crap. I did not know that.
Yeah, the writer of Dark Star.
I did not know that.
Director of Return of the Living Dead, which has never been on our show.
And did
Here we go again.
Tons of animated graphics for Star Wars.
Yeah.
I'll be damned. Okay. Fair enough.
People can do more than one thing, Ashley.
No, they can't. Right?
Do you think?
You stop it. No.
No, that's not true.
That's impossible. Oh, man. This was a tough week, though. This is tough. I mean, a lot of great things.
We didn't even touch on, Koyaanisqatsi or, those kind of movies. Or
no, we didn't.
Exactly what I was talking about.
Mayor of the Sunset Strip. Yeah, we're just listing movies now.
At this point.
Just lists.
No. Well, because you know what's going to happen. All these people say, why didn't you mention this one? Or why didn't you mention that one?
The reason is we didn't.
Oh, God. You know what? We could have gone with for Friday. We should have gone with Man on Wire for Friday.
Nah.
Oh, okay. Damn it, I should have picked.
I'm good with Jodorowsky's Dune or Hearts of Darkness. They're both great.
Yeah, wow, that's tough because I love Hearts of Darkness. And I remember seeing a Telluride outside in the park. Oh, man, that was awesome. And Eleanor Coppola was there. So good. I love that. I love that documentary.
Why don't we pick that then?
but Steve Scarlata. Wait, you want to go with Hearts of Darkness because you don't like Jodorowsky's Dune? Let's go with Hearts of Darkness.
That was my original pick.
Okay, I relent. I'm taking back my vote for Jodorowsky's Dune. I'm going with the filmmaker's Apocalypse, Hearts of Darkness, because I swallowed a bug. What do you think, Steve? Are you on board with this?
Yeah, it's a great movie. Absolutely.
Ashley, so say we all?
So say we all.
Ashley's just overcome by the horror.
Before I start talking about the making of the island of Dr. Moreau, like the poor guy who had to digitally erase Marlon Brando's nutsack from every frame of film that he was. This is what happens on this stupid week. Let's pick something.
But that's a great documentary. Richard Stanley going and being an extra on his own movie when it was taken away from him and given to John Frankenheimer.
Yes. Okay. But Jodorowsky's Dune.
There you go.
Hearts of Darkness.
No, Hearts of Darkness. Jesus, can't you get it straight, Ashley?
No. Okay. Anyway, so what are we doing?
So Monday.
Monday is American Movie directed by Chris Smith.
Tuesday, Darren Docterman.
Crum.
Wednesday, Ashley Edward Miller.
Feel-good movie of the year, Oxiana.
Thursday, it's The Kid Stays in the Picture. And Friday, by popular demand, it's Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse. What a week. We said it before, but this is a hell of a week.
I think we all learned a lot.
Yes.
Well, I think for anybody who thinks documentaries, look, there are people out there who probably think, documentaries, they're boring. It's like being in school. You watch any of these movies and you will be just blown away
Documentary
Indeed.
stupid.
Truth is stranger than fiction. No, it's a great week. It's a fantastic week. And we'll be back with an all-new fantasy theme week next week on the 4:30 movie. We're not going back on a hiatus quite yet. We're back to use and abuse the movies. And we want to thank, I don't know what that means. We want to thank our sound engineer, Mark Rivera, along with our executive sound engineer, the great Bill Ritter, our producer, Natalie Miscali, and our new co-producers, Zach Ragatz and Peter Holmstrom, who are now co-producers on the show. Welcome. Congratulations, guys. You've been working hard. We appreciate it. For 2021, we're bumping you up to co-producers. So
double your pay.
Yeah, twice nothing is still nothing. And of course, we're so appreciative to you, our audience, for being there and continuing to make the 4:30 movie a big success. And we'll do it for as long as you guys want to hear it. And if you want to see us, you can watch us on the Electric Now app. Download that for free.
Or come over to our house, but wear a mask.
No, don't come over.
Don't come to our house. Don't do that.
Please don't.
No.
Please don't. And just download the Electric Now app where at your favorite app store, and you can watch the 4:30 movie, along with other great podcasts like Best Movies Never Made, Disco Nights about modern Trek, Inglorious Treks about classic Trek, and
Inglorious Treks.
Glorious.
What did I say?
You said Inglorious Treks.
Inglorious Treks.
It's Inglorious Treksperts.
And
Inglorious. Thank you for correcting me on the name of our show. The Inglorious Treksperts, all about Star Trek. And now we're doing exciting audio commentaries under the Treksperts Briefing Room moniker. So from time to time, you get to listen to Darren and myself and special guests talk about classic Trek episodes from the original series through Enterprise. We got some really fun guests coming on in the next couple of weeks, so that's going to be fun. Keep an ear out for that. But until next week, on behalf of Steve, Ashley, Darren, and myself, Mark Altman, we'll see you at the movies. Until then, Eyewitness News starts now.
This show is produced by Dean Devlin and Mark A. Altman and is an Electric Surge Network production. Engineered by Bill Ritter for the Electric Surge Network.